Okay, I think we could go ahead and get started. We're right at noon. Hello, everyone. My name is Bouvier Yulin, and I'm the director of SCMA. Welcome to today's workshop, The Virtual World Beyond Zoom, the Future of Mediation, presented by Susan Guthrie. As you can tell, this workshop is in meeting format, which means we can see and hear you, and you can see and hear us. We ask that you stay muted throughout the presentation unless you're asking a question. This workshop is also being recorded and will be made available to all registrants next week. Please note that you'll only be able to view the recording for 2 weeks from the date that it is sent to you unless you are a sustaining member. Sustaining members will have access to the recording via the sustaining member webinar library. If you have any questions, please feel free to send me a chat or an email at info@scmediation.org, and I will go ahead and turn it over to Richard Earhart.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to have you here today for this workshop. And it's my pleasure to make the introduction of our speaker, Susan Guthrie, who actually needs no introduction, especially to those of us with SCMA. But in the event that there are some of you that are not members of SCMA, first, you certainly need to join. So that you can be a part of these types of presentations on a regular basis. But Susan is one of our board members. She is someone I consider a very close colleague and a very close friend, and a friend to all of us actually in the mediation community. Susan, as most of you know, has been instrumental in bringing the virtual Zoom mediation platform to mediators in Southern California and really across the nation and at this point across the world. And I will note, Susan at this time actually has an international following, and that really started right here in Southern California and started with the Southern California Mediation Association, and she has grown it and grown it and grown it, and has continued in that growth to support the Southern California Mediation Association, and for that we are truly, truly grateful. A little bit about Susan. She is a nationally recognized as one of the top family law and mediation attorneys in the United States, and she has been helping individuals and families navigate separation and divorce for over 30 years. Susan has also recently partnered with mediation legend Forrest Woody Mustin to create the Mustin Guthrie Academy to provide cutting-edge, gold standard trainings for attorneys, mediators, and other professionals. Pardon me. That's what I get for reading the script here. But I didn't want to lose anything or miss anything.
Yeah, they probably don't want to hear all that stuff.
Well, what I will also tell you, though, is Susan is very much involved with the American Bar Association, and she instrumental in the work with the dispute resolution section of the American Bar Association. And really, in that respect, she is involved in dispute resolution from the ground level all the way up to the top. So Susan, we appreciate you being here with us today, and look forward to hearing what you have to say about the future of online mediation. So Susan, thank you for being here.
Well, thank you, Richard. As anyone here who does know me knows, anything I can do with my friends at SCMA, anything that even virtually gets me back to Southern California, I'm here. I'm in for it, and I'm really excited about this. And thank you to Richard and Jennifer for asking me to do this program and to SCMA. And I just have to say, Bouvier and Taisha are always so wonderful about getting everything organized. So I'm thrilled to be here, and I'm excited to talk about this topic. And I see that my colleague and friend, Dr. Deborah Dupree, is here as well. So just prepare yourself, Deborah, because I was hoping you were going to be here. I will tell you all right as a disclaimer from the beginning, a lot of the psychology stuff that I'm going to throw out, Dr. D. I learn all the best stuff from Dr. Deborah. So there's some of this that she may want to be picking up on, but I'm excited about this topic. I got started kind of delving into it for FMI. So if anyone saw the presentation that Deborah and I did with Gabrielle Hartley at FMI, you may hear aspects that we touched on there, but because that we had such a short period of time and we're covering such a broad swath of topics, I got to take a much deeper dive into this right now. And I am always excited about the tech and about advances of where our profession is going, but this got me even more excited because there's just so much out there. So I had to limit myself. We only have an hour. I do want to say, I do have a slide deck. I'll give you all a link to that so that you have it. But if you have questions or anything as you're going along, please feel free to unmute and ask. I want this to be interactive. I have questions for you. Use the chat function if that's easy. I really want this to be helpful. And if you have questions, just let me know. So I am going to just share my screen so that we can get started, and I will also save a little time at the end for questions if that's helpful. Let me just get I'm just wanted to put you all so I can see as many of you as possible. I'm just moving you all up to the top of my screen here. So this is just my opening page, but I wanted to just quick rundown on where I ended up. I wanted to get to sort of the three things that I was hoping would give you the most actionable takeaways. Well, at least two of them are going to be the most actionable takeaways. The third topic is maybe a little out there, but it's a lot less out there than maybe you're thinking and you'll see that when we talk about it. So I'm going to start out with how we can leverage online communication. And that's really because there's much more. And here's Dr. Deborah is going to come right out of my mouth here. There's so much more to effectively communicating with people online than just opening up our laptop and starting to talk to somebody through Zoom. We have a number of opportunities that we can leverage as professionals to do what we do even better online. So I'm going to go through some of that for you here, again, hoping to give you some, really usable information that you'll be able to take from this program and apply tomorrow in your next mediation. Then I want to jump into hybrid mediations. And this is something I touched on at the FMI. We'll get into what a hybrid mediation is and the complexities of that. But this is really the future. This is what we're going to be looking at. And it behooves all of us to prepare for that and understand exactly what we're looking at rather than just saying, oh, yes, I'm going to have some participants in my mediation in my office and some of them on the wall as virtual participants. There's more to that. And I want to spend some good time on that for everyone. And then we have a little bit of the fun, the future tech, what's coming in the pipeline, what's out there, and how it applies to what we do. So I just wanted to take a quick make a quick comment about, we are 1 year into COVID, and I know we all probably remember back to this time last year. It's almost exactly when I started to get all the panicked phone calls and emails where, because and what Richard said is 100% correct. My online presence totally exploded through my membership in SCMA. People knew through my membership in SCMA that I was already an online mediator, that I was already, helping people transition online. And, I remember a year ago starting to get those calls and those emails. Oh my God, Susan, can you show me how to do this? Clearly I need some way to work with people. What we didn't realize a year ago is that this was going to go on for a year, right? I think a lot of us thought a couple of weeks at home on the couch, like it was a snow day. Well, Southern California doesn't have a lot of snow days, but hurricane day. No, you don't have hurricanes either. I'm not sure what kind of off school days you all get, but it's gone on for a year and the entire world shifted online. What also then shifted was all of the venture capital money, all of the research, all of the, the tech innovation, and all of our experience, our collective experience. Think back to, did you even know what Zoom was a year ago? And now think about how you all flipped on this webinar, probably without even thinking about clicking on the link and joining a webinar, right? I mean, most of the people that I know didn't even know what Zoom was. Now you Zoom your day away. So the benefit for us as professionals is truly that there has been a vast leap forward in what we do and what tools are available to us. We never would be having the presentation that I'm going to, and the things I'm talking about right now, without the past year that we've gone through. So I know not everyone's looking for the silver linings of what's happened, but for our profession, there's been a great deal of innovation that's come our way. And there's also been just a great deal of focus on us, right? The courts were closed. People were shifting to dispute resolution, looking for alternative ways to resolve their conflicts and disputes. So going into the realm of online communication, and I have learned in this past year, I was an online mediator for, oh gosh, 4 or 5 years. Well, I'm into my 6th year as an online mediator now. So 5 years before COVID. I never put a lot of thought into how I was communicating with my clients in this medium. It wasn't until I got out there in the world and started training people how to transition to an online practice. And I started getting a flood of questions. And the top ones were always, well, how do you establish rapport through a computer screen? Isn't that an impediment? Actually, there was a presumption that it was an impediment. How do you manage emotions through a computer screen? Aren't you missing the personal touch? And I started to really dive into some of my own research on this. And this is especially where Dr. Deborah has been so helpful to me with the psychological and neuroscience behind this. And what I've discovered and been able to implement into my own mediation practice is that there are a number of advantages that we have by being online that we can take advantage of if we know about them, if we're thinking about them and applying them into our practice. So what most people did when they transitioned online was take what they did in person and basically just start doing it to the best of their ability online without making modifications other than those that were necessary because now suddenly people weren't in your office. So instead of taking a check for payment, they're now taking credit cards, or instead of getting wet signatures, they're using DocuSign. So people were making that kind of a shift. But were there shifts in your, in your communication styles? So one of the things I always talk about, and I've been talking about this in my training program where I was training people to go online, is what's called the uneven triad of communication. And this surprised me to find this out, but it coincided with what my anecdotal experience of being an online mediator was. And it didn't surprise me to find out that when we're communicating, 55% of our communication is through body movements, our face, facial expressions, and our arms. These things waving around up here. And then another 38% is voice tone, the inflection in our tone. And look at this little tiny 7% is actually the words that we say. That's our communication. That's human communication. So look at the screen here. Look at these people's faces. Look how much of them we are seeing. Everybody is in a square. Everybody is right up there, up and personal. We're seeing their facial expression. So it's important to realize that we have this advantage. I was just interviewing a judge who does trials, virtual trials, about what he thinks about the experience of being a Zoom judge. And he was emphatic that he thinks the experience is superior to what it was when he was in a courtroom, because he said, when I'm looking at a witness on the screen, I'm actually looking at the witness in their face. I'm hearing and seeing their testimony right there in front of me. He said, when they're in a courtroom, they're sitting in a chair next to me. I've got papers and stuff in front of me. I can't really see their face because they're usually right on level with me. I can't see them. He was like, this is the best thing that ever happened to my trials. He's emphatic. Even when the courts open up again, he doesn't want to go back into the courtroom for hearings and trials unless necessary. So one of the things that we need to remember is that far be it that we think it's a subpar way to communicate with people, it's actually a way that we can communicate better with people. If you start realizing how much you can understand and get from people when you can see their facial expressions, when you can hear the inflection in their voice. And in fact, this is something that is directly from Dr. Dupree, because she has a wonderful slide in one of our presentations we did for AAA, where, I just want to point out to you all, you don't see more than what you see on this gentleman here in a Zoom screen. This is these thumbnails of this gentleman are essentially Zoom thumbnails. Can you all catch emotion on this gentleman's face in all 9 of these screens? Like, let's look here at the one in the dead center, the Paul Lind Square, for those of you who are older, like I am, in Hollywood Squares. What do you think the emotion is on this, the one in the very center there? Anybody have any guesses? You can use the chat or feel free to unmute. Me, looks like he just can't believe it. Somebody, and I see that in family. What's going on here? Overwhelmed, surprise, awe, amazing, incredulous. Oh, I can never say that word, so I'm just gonna let that one go. But you can all read it. This one in the lower right-hand corner, he looks like he smelled something bad, I think. I'm not sure, but he's not liking it very much. I think we know that, whether it was a smell or something. So, this is one of those, I think, when you look at it and you realize, look at the wrinkles on the forehead and the eyebrows being raised or not, and the lines around somebody's mouth. That's clearly a smile that's happy. He's got the nose scrunched up here. We can tell a great deal just by looking at someone when they are communicating with us, and certainly in the inflection and voice. So how can you take that knowledge and help your clients with it? What can we do for them now that we know this? And this is something that I've started building into my work with my clients to let them know. Anybody have any suggestions? Dr. D, I know you do. And again, feel free to unmute. I'm happy to have people talk. I want this to be interactive for you all, unless you want to stick with the chat. But does anybody have any ideas on how you might be able to help your clients as they're trying to communicate with each other? So a few of the things, I've lost here we go. I always come at it from the point of view of, I educate them on all of this. I didn't know all of this. Even when I was mediating online, I didn't know all of these areas of communication and how important they were. And so it's not just letting them know how important they are. Oh, Betty, be sure to be watching Bob's expression. It's going to tell you a lot. You need to tell them things like, make sure that they're completely visible. Sometimes people log on to their computer screen and they're like this. You're going to miss an awful lot of their communication if all you're seeing is them from the nose up. Anybody out there who's tried to do some in-person mediations lately with masks on? I haven't heard a lot of positive feedback from people who've tried that when you're trying to talk to people and all you can see are their eyes. With the inflection in the voice, they've got to make sure their audio is good. Same thing, they've got to have a good camera. They've got to be lit. And then I always encourage them to use their hands, to use their body, the leaning in, the using your hand talking, but it's got to be up here. I always remind them about that. And another thing that's truly important, and it's important for us as mediators as well as for the participants, is that eye contact, or that appearance of eye contact, because it's not actually possible in a virtual sense to make eye contact. I'm looking at Andy Shelby right now in his eyes. It doesn't look, I'm certain, to Andy as if I'm looking at him in his eyes. If I'm looking into my camera, it should look to all of you like I'm looking into your eyes. And so people don't know that. We need to tell them. And so if they are making a point they really want the other side to hear, or if you are, you can connect with people much more directly when you don't look at their thumbnail, you actually look at your camera. And then I do encourage them to listen carefully. And I think we do this anyway, in our process, but it's something to remember how much that inflection matters. So I have found in telling my clients all of this, that it's about the uneven triad of communication, that they will actually in a mediation session go, well, you know what you said doesn't really match up. What I really heard in your voice was this. But it's usually they're hearing, you may have said something I didn't like, but I hear in your voice that maybe you didn't mean it that way. So I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt. That just happened in one of my divorce mediations the other day. And she said, if Susan hadn't told me about the whole inflection thing, I'd probably be really mad at you right now. So it was helpful in that moment. I thought I saw a chat come in. I just want to make sure. Oh, a couple. Here we go. Let me just check and make sure. Make sure they're looking into their camera. Exactly. Deborah got that one spot on. And Donna, possibly let client know in a positive way that facial expression doesn't match what you're saying. That's kind of what my client pointed out when she said her husband's, tone and inflection didn't notice that. But it was great for them to know that as well. One of our roles in all of this is constantly, as the mediator, we're in charge of the process. We control the process. Educating our clients is a huge part of that. And this is all stuff most people don't know. Carol has a great question. Do you pre-meet with a party to make certain they are set up correctly pre-mediation? I do. That is a part of my practice. I think I see Deborah nodding. We do that course with Gervais. It's the pre-mediation meetings are so critical for creating rapport, for making the initial connection with parties, and then for those technical reasons that they don't even really need to know about unless there's some issue you want to gently bring to their attention, such as, Mary, it's probably better if we're not just looking at your forehead, if you reach out and angle your camera, we'll be able to see your face. And, then I usually would lead into that. The reason it's so important to see your whole face is 55% of our communication is our facial expression. So I always meet with them ahead of time. I find that that to be a critical part of the process. And then further to working online is we should be using more visuals. We have this fantastic capability through screen share of being able to share pretty much anything. Yet, although some of us may have used some visual aids in person, it was usually a whiteboard or we'd pass out handouts or something like that. But we're not particularly, I do know one mediator who has a brain. I know Bill Eddy uses his brain all the time. Not this one, the one he have in his hands. He had it actually at the FMI, didn't he? I just thought of that. But there are good reasons why, because we have the capability online, we might want to consider using more visuals online. One of the things that I could not believe when I found out was that our brain processes visuals 60,000 times faster than text. 60,000 times faster. So think about if you are, again, I'm a family mediator. So if I'm sitting down with a couple and I'm trying to work out a financial calculation. Well, if Betty keeps the $200,000 in equity and Bill gets $20,000 in equity here, and we have to make up, it is much easier for them to comprehend what I am trying to get across or what we're talking about if I have that up on a whiteboard, on a screen, on my iPad. I do almost all my whiteboarding on my iPad Pro and share that, and I can do it with the Apple Pencil. And they will absorb it more quickly and they will have it as a point of reference. I mean, a few of the other stats, they're all kind of crazy about how we process visuals. 90% of info transmitted to the brain is visual. 50% of your brain is active in visual processing. Our brains are usually only at about 30%. 70% of your sensory receptors are in your eyes, again, visual. And 40% of people, we all learn in different ways. Some people are more auditory, some people learn better by writing, but the largest group of learning are people who respond better to visuals. So screen share for us in our process is a huge opportunity to help our clients. Yet most mediators that I know who are online haven't added anything into their process to be more visual. And there are a number of ways that we can do that. And I'm wondering if you have any ideas of how you might incorporate more visuals into your mediation process. Thinking about, anything that can be turned into a visual aid of some kind. Anybody have any ideas? I have a bunch because I've literally, like, anything I can turn into a visual, I have turned into a visual. In fact, a lot of my pre-mediation onboarding of clients is all done by video now, because they like the videos. They like to click on a link and watch me walk them through things and be able to demonstrate things. So my life is easy because I'm not having to do a half hour of onboarding or an hour of onboarding. I can send them the video and then we can have a shorter session. But as an example, somebody has, did I miss something? Oh, I use a table whiteboard to write down what clients have said to make certain we all know where we are. Fantastic point, Carol, because exactly what, and you'll see there's a tech egg that I'm going to show you in just a second, that's super helpful with that. But I do the exact same thing. I used to work off of a written agenda, and I would write down facts in blue, and then I would write down proposals, and I think I used red for proposals, and then agreements were in green. And clients would get excited about seeing more green on the paper. They'd be like, "Yay, more green!" And we'd be moving forward to that. But it also, just even by using the color coding for what I was writing down, made it quickly and easy for them to know, oh, well, that's a fact that came from either our documentation or one of us stated it as a fact we agree on, or that was husband's proposal, wife's proposal, Betty's proposal, Bill's proposal. And then the agreements. And when I was writing out what their agreement was, even though I was just trying to capture the essence, it was incredibly helpful to do that. Well, they were both watching me write it out, and I could then say to them, so this is what it's, I'd say it out loud, what I had just typed, and say, does that conform to what you just agreed to? Is that what you mean? And we could tweak it and fine tune it and make certain. Circling words that may tell a common story. I love that. Anything that will, I know, there's a mediator up in Canada. She came to, I think, one of the ABA conferences just a couple of years ago. And she does everything by drawing pictures. She's an absolutely beautiful artist, and she can very quickly, she's almost like one of those caricature artists that you see, and she can draw things out. But her clients love it because their story unfolds in a picture. You have a chart to use that tracks offer and demand numbers, and you share the show. Right. Perfect, Tom. I love that. And right, how can you translate that to online other than holding up something, which can be a little difficult? Is there a way to replicate that or build it in online, which usually we can find different ways to get things online. So here's just a few of the ways that I do it. Again, this is particular to a family law, but oops, sorry. Let me go back. I've lost my controls. I use charts to show people, when we're doing property distributions, we can do charts of things. I use spreadsheets. I worked off that agenda. You can show them documents. Certainly, it's much, much easier to draft documents or get agreement on documents. The whiteboard, I could do support calculations right on there. If we were working on a parenting plan, I could put the calendar right up. We've shown pictures. I show videos. There's a video called Split that's, divorce through children's eyes. That's very effective for parents who are struggling and having a hard time coming together to co-parent. So there's a myriad of different ways we can help them by implementing more visuals into what we do. One thing I wanted to make you all aware of, and ADR Notable was one of our sponsors actually for the FMI, but I have been a fan of theirs since I met Gary, their founder, back at a ABA function probably a year and a half ago or so. I think this is an absolutely brilliant idea, and they created it. Gary says we created it to bring the computer into the mediation room, but now we're in a situation where the mediation room is the computer. So basically it's a great platform. What you're seeing here on the screen is their note-taking function. That's just one function that it has. It has practice management, full-on practice management. It also, so as an example, if you can see here on the screen, you can be typing in issues, proposals, facts, and then what it doesn't show here is see the little thumbs up that's blue. When you come to an agreement, you hit the thumbs up, and that phrase will actually move over to a Word document that you can then start working on to make an agreement at the end of your process. And you can actually store your templates and draft clauses that you use right in there, and just literally drag and drop into your document. It has e-signatures. They're adding a payment button where you're going to be able to hook it up to your PayPal soon. And you can share this all on screen. I started using this. I dropped that written agenda that I was using, and I've started to use this, and my clients are fascinated with it. They love it. And they get, yeah.
Explain, I'm sorry, this is Carol Aragon. Could you explain again how this, hi. Could you explain again how this gets up, this particular visual? What happens? They get rid of the video and then put it up?
Yeah, so all you would do is have this open on your computer screen, and you would go down to your screen share as the host, click screen share, and you should see the thumbnail that shows your ADR Notable screen. It's probably through whatever browser you're using. And when you click on that, it will open up this screen so that you can be sharing it. I work in my mediations, I usually am working off 3 screens. So I will usually have that open on another, and I'll be able to type on it, but people will be able to see it. But all this is done through screen share.
I love it. I love it.
It's really incredibly helpful. And it's just at the bottom, I know SCMA had a code. Gary gave me a code. I do not work for ADR Notable. I get nothing from them. I just really love the product. Try it for 3 months. If you start a case on it, even when the trial ends, you can finish the case on it. But it's one more way where we can start adding. This is the stuff I love. This is where what we do for clients and the need we have to be more visual with them, plus technology that's come along, all come together in the perfect storm. This is like everything you could want is right here on this screen, and we're online so we can share it with our clients. And this will take you, from beginning to end. Yep.
Hey, Susan, it's Amanda Kushner from ADR Notable, actually.
Hey. Oh, hey. Hi, how are you?
Hi. Just for everybody's knowledge, I dropped a link to our demo calendar in the group chat. So if anybody's interested in learning more, if what you saw today that Susan showed you guys is of interest to you, just write down that code at the bottom of the screen, and then just type the URL that I put into the chat and sign up for a demo, because we give them out pretty frequently.
I didn't even know you were here, Amanda. I'm so excited.
I'm not ready.
Everybody at ADR Notable knows how much I love ADR Notable, so no surprises there. So I just wanted to, this is one way you can incorporate both the technology into your practice, as well as take that technology and use it to be more visual for your clients. So 2 ways that we can start adding and just start thinking. Just because it's what I do in my mediations doesn't mean it's what you have to do in your mediations. The core is how can you use your knowledge around communication being more visual, more auditory, less the words that are said, and how can you use the fact that people process things when they're visual and use that to enhance your process. One thing I can tell you anecdotally is in family law, our mediations are usually sequential sessions. So we go 2-hour sessions over a certain number of weeks to work people through it. So I know statistically, when I was an in-person mediator, we were anywhere from 7 to 10 mediation sessions. Once I went online, it became more like 5, 6. And now that I'm more visual and incorporate a lot more technology into what I'm doing with my clients, I'm down to 3 or 4. So that's anecdotal, but for me, I've noticed that it's a more streamlined process. The other thing I'm just going to point out quickly is there's also, when you can focus people on the task of something being visual on screen, it also has an emotion diffusing aspect to it. It's almost, I don't say this humorously, but it's almost like when you have a baby crying and you wave a rattle and it distracts them from the crying. I don't mean that in a derogatory sense. I mean, when people get caught up in the emotion of the moment of a mediation and the conflict is coming up, if I can redirect their attention to a task on screen, Bob, I can hear you're really upset. How about we pull up a note taking and we, bullet point some of these issues that you're raising? Or if we go back and look at how this applies to what we were talking about, it can be incredibly effective in diffusing that moment. Another Dr. Deborah tip. There you go. So any questions on communication? And you do have Dr. D here. So if you have any deeper questions, feel free. I'm sure she'll pitch in and answer questions as well. But now we're getting to the hybrid mediations. And this is important. I really, truly feel that this is something that, to stay on the curve, we all need to be prepared for, because it's coming. In fact, it's already started. And what do I mean by a hybrid mediation or a hybrid meeting? That's just purely where some of the participants are in person, like on the left here. Say we have a mediator and a client, and then we have another party who beams in remotely. This is certain to become popular as we go out of COVID and back into a world that allows in person. But now we're faced with, do people want to be in person? There are a myriad of benefits to online mediation that some people that have nothing to do with social distancing. The time savings, the convenience, the not sitting in traffic, the being able to be anywhere. There's a lot. It's greener. It's less expensive. So there will be people one of the people or one side may want to be with you in your office, and others may want to be remote. So that brings to us, I did just want to point out, I was trying to get some statistics on this, because this isn't another thing, like this just wasn't an issue in our world a year ago. And now, as the world is starting to open up, go Google hybrid meetings. It's all over the internet, because it is. Companies know this is going to be coming. So businesses, like my husband runs a hotel company, and they're making the decisions right now about how they're going to handle their workforce once it's possible to be in the office. Are they going to require people to be in the office? Are they going to go to flex time? What's going to happen? And that's happening all over. And as you can see in the stats here, already this is for meetings, so it's not for mediations. I couldn't find any stats on mediations, but already 1 in 4 meetings are hybrid. And once quarantine lifts, that is going to rise. And I truly believe that it's going to become the norm. I think you're going to see, if you offer hybrid mediations, I think you will see that being the most often chosen aspect for people. So the real issue for us as practitioners is there are practical issues to this, and there are psychological issues to this, because now you are in a situation where some people are sitting right there across the table from you, and you've got, I always call it the great and wonderful Oz on the wall, right? Who's maybe on the wall, maybe on a laptop. That's probably one of the first issues that might come up. So really, to be properly prepared and to be capable practitioners, we need to give some thought to the practical and the psychological. So, you know, some of the practical issues, anybody have any idea what some of those practical issues might be when you have some people in your space and some people who are coming in remotely? There's definitely probably audio issues. Anybody, you know, or how are people going to hear what everyone in the room is saying? How do you hear what the other people, connection issues is always a problem. What if you have one or two people with you, another one who's got spotty Wi-Fi? What are you going to do about the cameras? How are people going to see the person or people who are remote? Is everyone going to be on a laptop? I was just talking to a friend whose kids have gone back to school, but it's hybrid school. So some of the students in the class are at home so they can maintain social distancing restrictions, and some of the kids are in the classroom. And her child described what class is like. Class is like this, staring at a computer screen, even though they're in a classroom with a teacher and all their colleagues or their friends. They're looking at a computer screen all day because the class is actually getting conducted on Zoom. And so is that what your mediation is going to look like? Are you and the person who are in the room both going to be staring at laptops? And I think you all might know there's an issue when you have a couple of laptops in one room with feedback. Have you ever tried that? With that delightful noise that you get when you have more than one person who's got audio going. So now we have another audio issue. There's more to manage and possibly mess up. Absolutely. There are scheduling issues, time differences in scheduling. We get that, I think, both in remote mediations. We are probably also going to have the same issue when we have someone coming in caucusing. Good point, Brian. Now, how do you caucus with the person who's remote, and what do you do with the person who's there? So we really need to, I know I'm hoping what this is showing is we really need to put a little thought into some of those practical considerations. But think about the psychological as well. And I have participated. I can tell you, when I first moved away from Southern California and was in Chicago, I had been co-mediating with a colleague in San Diego, and I loved working with them. They had a TV screen set up on the wall in their conference room already. So he's like, let's keep co-mediating. You can beam in. And so we would do that, and the couple would be in the room with him, and I would be the great and powerful Oz up on the wall. And, you know, when the clients or when the parties had a question, or when they were looking to someone, who do you think they looked to? It wasn't me. They weren't looking at the television on the wall. They were looking at him. And because the screen, what they had done is set up a laptop, they were all really far away from the laptop, which was the speaker. So I couldn't hear them all. They all had to fit on the camera. They all had to sit at the far end of the table really close to each other, which created a really weird dynamic, because you've got this divorcing couple and their mediator basically sitting in each other's laps, leaning into a screen to try and talk to me all the time, which made it very odd. I just read a Harvard study on, again, it's for workplace hybrid meetings, but one of the things that came out very strongly in their study is when you have workplace teams where some of those teams are remote and some are in person, you almost get a us versus them mentality. There's a divide, or there's a barrier, right? There's them and there's us here in the room. And for those of you, if you're a mediator, what dynamic does that set up with neutrality? I think, Carol, you said something about the appearance of neutrality if you're the mediator in the room. I think it may have some serious issues. Did somebody say something?
Well, I was going to ask you, Susan,
Yep.
Everyone looks so perfect in this picture. As a matter of fact, even the people in this meeting, one of my questions is, to build rapport, you need to look good as a mediator. You need to look nice so that your face isn't dark and you're not too far away and you have a nice background. Did you personally use someone to help you set up the first time? So you say to yourself, I know this is a good look, and I'm going to look nice and be friendly, and people are going to see my facial expressions.
So I was self-taught because 5, 6 years ago when I went online, I didn't know of anyone who was out there helping people, learn how to do it. So I had to figure it all out myself. I can tell you it's a definite part of my training program. I have a whole section on the equipment that we need to do this properly. I see Carol Lee here. Carol Lee's been through this whole thing with me. So yes, I mean, you have to, and it's a great point, Carol, because it's not just you who needs to have good lighting, a good camera, a good microphone. Every single participant needs to, because we need to be able to see all of them, hear all of them, and have enough light on their face. So they can't sign on with a nice bright window behind them and no light in front of them, or they're going to look like Deep Throat, at Watergate, as I always say. I actually have a picture of that in my slide deck for the training program. So yes, you do have to make sure that you have, and you have to have a professional background, which can be virtual or at least clean. I mean, how many people here have seen unmade beds, dirty dishes, piles of laundry during COVID? I've seen more. I know more about all of my colleagues, clients, and friends than we ever did. Gregory, do you encourage use of a laptop and discourage use of a cell phone? Absolutely. I don't so let me be more clear. I prefer and strongly suggest to people that they conduct the mediation, the visual part of the mediation on a laptop or desktop computer, purely because of functionality and size. You have more functionality, especially if you're using Zoom online, than you do if you are offline or on a small iOS device or a tablet. They don't have the same functionality, ideally, and most importantly, breakout rooms, but also you want to be able to see their face, right? We just talked about how important facial expression is to seeing people. So you need to be able to see them, and that little teeny tiny thumbnail on a phone screen is so small. Are you really able to communicate with them? So it becomes important to be able to make sure that you are on a big enough screen so that everybody's face is large enough so that they're visible. So I want to just tell you about a few of the tech options that you have available to you to deal with the practical problems. So everything that we were talking about when it comes to being able to see people, the camera, the audio. So because everybody out there in the tech world knew this was coming, they've created in-office technology, small conference room office suite, or called huddle spot technology. And basically it is an AI assisted, artificial intelligence assisted program. The camera will rotate because it has artificial assistance technology. It will rotate to the speaker in the room. So if you have people sitting as you do on this screen around, see how you see the camera here under the two screens? That camera is going to turn to this gentleman while he's talking and then turn to the other people, but still it's a wide enough screen that the people who are beaming in remotely can see all of them. You can also see that there are speakers here, and some systems, depending on the size of the room, will have speakers all over the room, and it has a control panel. This particular system is one from Logitech. They just demoed it for me a little while ago. It's actually quite impressive. And for, a solo private practitioner, their small conference room technology is about $2,000. So I know that is an investment, something to think about. I'm not saying it's something that you have to do, but those are the things that are starting to come out. It's also something that these are brand new. The cost is going to start coming down, but it is something that you can start thinking about as solving your problem. If you don't want to do this, how are you going to be able to see the people, hear the people, and how will the remote people be able to see everyone in the room and hear everyone in the room? There's also a number of the office suites out there. So Regus and some of the other suites, they are all installing those virtual suites in their spaces and will have them available to rent. So if you want to offer the capability of hybrid mediations, a less expensive and less of a, investment might be just knowing where in your vicinity this technology is going to be available to you. And from a marketing perspective, I can tell you it will make you appear, and you are someone who knows the needs and who's prepared for them. So knowing who's offering that, knowing that you have that availability, and saying to the clients, I don't do those mediations here in my office, but I have the space to do them, is important. There's also, we have to address those psychological issues. And this is an area where, this is something where we really need to think about it. And I would say the very first thing that's always important, as it is with anything when it comes to, these, is our awareness of it, is that we put some thought into this. And we think about the fact, we all just are in this session thinking, well, yeah, how well will that play out for the parties if I have the plaintiff here in my office with their attorney, but the defendant and their attorney are somewhere else? So being aware of the issue is always, I've always believed, therapists told me that millions of years ago, awareness is the first step to solving a problem. But then the next goes back to that, what I said on communication, educate. So when a client is deciding whether or not they want to do a hybrid mediation, shouldn't they know about these issues so they make an informed choice? They may be choosing to be remote because it's easier for them, but the one who's choosing to be remote may be putting themselves in a position when they find themselves in the middle of the mediation where they feel left out, or they feel that they are marginalized by not being present. So as part of what we do to educate them, shouldn't we be educating them about what they might be facing? They can still choose to do it, but don't we have an obligation to let them know there may be consequences to that choice? And then for me, because I've done these, I think it takes more effort on our part throughout the mediation. I will often remind people that, Bob, I don't want you to feel that we've left you out because I just was talking with Mary. So, making sure you turn to Bob on the screen and saying, let's make sure we keep the dynamic. I will, another lesson that I've learned along the way is to tell people what's going on in your head, not your inner process of the mediator, but when things like this are coming up, Bob, it may feel to you that I've had my head turned away from you. I really wanted Mary to know I was hearing her, but now I would really like to hear your view, and turn your body toward Bob on the screen if you've got him on the wall or in front of you. It's something else that we as the mediators it's going to be more effort on our part. We are going to have to really make a concerted thought and not be as easy. Think about how easy it is to do a mediation. We'll wish for the days where they were just little squares on our screen because it was so easy to look at the screen. We've gotten so used to this. It will be a new ball game when we have some who are remote and some who are with us. And then I just want to run through some of the future, I'll call it future tech, but these things are actually already here. Artificial intelligence assisted mediation exists. It's in practice. It's out there. People are availing themselves of it. Two of probably the better knowns are WeVorce and Bliss Divorce. They're both in the family law arena. WeVorce has been around for a few years. Bliss Divorce just came out with a bunch of people who just broke off from LegalZoom. They have a huge amount of money behind them. And some of our members, I believe, are mediators for Bliss Divorce. And then Smart Settle is actually in Europe. And this is more for monetary settlements. But this exists right now and is out there, and people are availing themselves of it. There will be more artificial intelligence assisted mediation coming in the pipeline. And I know people start to panic and think, well, that's going to put us out of a job. What it may for the really like small claims cases or things where it's a financial amount in dispute. But both WeDivorce and Bliss Divorce, where there are usually more complicated issues at hand, they actually narrow the field. They actually then give over to a in-person human mediator or an online human mediator the issues that were unable to be resolved and the refined issues. So it's still a work in progress. It's something that, you know, is a question in the world of technology. How far can this go? But it's coming. Technology is going to go there. We need to be aware of it. There's also going to be, say, for us, artificial intelligence assisted client information gathering, where you'll be able to put clients through, instead of filling out forms for you, you'll be able to put them through an AI assisted client intake process. That I can tell you, clients, especially online clients, like things that make their lives easier, like technology that takes some of the burden off of them. So it's something to keep your, you know, your mind open on. I just thought this was really interesting because this was Smart Settle One is an AI tool. And there was a 3-month long dispute that had been going back and forth, and in less than an hour, using a blind bids mechanism, which is kind of what Colin Rule came up with so long ago for eBay. It settled it. So it's out there. And then last but not least, the fun, I just think it's for fun, but it's also already here. This is not just the future. Virtual reality exists. I have taken part in a couple of virtual reality trials recently with the goggles. Any of you who have younger kids, both of my stepsons wanted VR goggles for Christmas, and that's what they got. They run around the house now with these things in their hands. I showed this video. Do we have time? Oh, well, I'm going to just show a little bit of the video so you can see what virtual reality actually looks like. Let me just do that. Oh, you know what I didn't do? Sorry, you're not here. Well, you can see it. You don't need to hear it.
Imagine a new reality where you don't have to travel to work because you could just teleport there. Where you could shake your teammates' hands and speak to them even if you want. The rules of physics don't exist. It is designed to make your meetings more productive than ever. Local space around you is your work canvas. You can use three-dimensional models.
So I won't show the whole thing only because we don't have a lot of time and I want to be respectful of your time, but you can see that's at some point in time in our future, and money is getting thrown at this virtual. I'm telling you, venture capital has completely pivoted and is going at our industry, going at the meeting industry. And that will be available in a conference room type setting. And people will be offering it within, I'd say, a year. I think you're going to be seeing virtual reality mediations and arbitrations, et cetera. So a lot has changed in a year, a lot of positives. Hopefully that some of that was helpful to you. I really wanted to bring you all things that you'd be able to use and implement right away. I did want to say, no, not a lot of time for questions, but I'm happy to answer if anybody has any. And here's my contact information. If anybody would like to, if you have other questions that come up or you have to go right now, please feel free to send me questions by email. I'm always happy to answer questions. I enjoy it. So, and I will make this slide deck available. I'll give it to you, Bouvier, if that's okay, so that people can access it. And I don't know, I know it's right on time, so I don't know if you want to end here or I can take questions, whatever works for you. Bye, Deborah.
I think if we have questions, we could go ahead and take them, Susan, if you have time.
Oh, sure, I do. If anybody has any questions, I'm happy to answer them. Let me see. I was just going to look and see. So I got the last question that was on there. So if no questions, it's exciting stuff, everyone. I mean, there's a lot out there that's really happening super quickly. I could go on for a very long time on all the stuff that I've gotten to see lately. So I'm excited for all of us, what's coming in the pipeline, but we have to be careful how we use it. So that would be the other flip side of it. We need to be mindful and thoughtful. So, well, thank you all for having me. I hope this was helpful.
Thank you so much, Susan, for taking the time. It was such a wonderful presentation.
Susan,
Always happy.
yeah, and Susan, we can't thank you enough. And again, for everybody that was in the presentation this afternoon, thank you very much for being here. And I will just, from my own experience, I know that if you reach out to Susan with questions, she's more than happy to assist you with all of this. And just again, thank you very much for being here. And Susan, thank you for giving to us once again. Thank you very much.
Always. Thank you for having me. Anything to do with my SCMA family, I'm always happy.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, everyone.